Welcome back, everyone. So now we'll start a mini course on homoclinic classes and equilibrium states by Professor Sylvain Crovesier from Paris Sud. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for organizing this conference, ICTS, ICTP, the organizers. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm going to give this mini course about homoclinic classes and equilibrium states. Since I'm not sure about who you are, so please ask questions if there are things you want me to detail, or we can discuss after the talk also. So my talk maybe is somewhat complementary to Stefano's lecture. So I will start with some general discussion about dynamics, so that goes in the same spirit. So what we will do is to describe the dynamics of diffeomorphism. So we fix a space. It's manifold, which is assumed to be compact, boundaryless, connected. And we fix a map, which is a diffeomorphism. I will need that it's maybe C2, not C1 is not enough. And the goal is to describe the orbits. So for each point, we apply inductively the map, forward and backward, and we want to describe the sequence we get. So to achieve this goal, there are several things you may want to do. So here is a kind of program, general program in dynamics. So the first thing is to try to split the system, because you will maybe see some attracting parts, some invariant sets. So you want to identify them and then to study the dynamics in restriction. So for each piece, you want to understand the dynamics inside. One way is to build a coding, a Markov partition, as you mentioned. Another way is more statistical. So you want to study limit behavior, studying the invariant measures. And maybe you want to do it in a quantified way and study speed of convergence, so limit behaviors. And as you said, as Stefano said, this is well understood for a large class of system, which is a class of uniformly hyperbolic diffeomorphism. But nevertheless, this class is not the whole space of dynamics. So a big question is to address the case of the general diffeomorphism. But what you understood for uniformly hyperbolic diffeomorphism may be used as a guideline for general systems. So the program of this mini course is to try to push that in a general system. So discuss today how to decompose the dynamics. Tomorrow I will talk more about surfaces, because we have better property. And then in lecture 3, I will talk about coding, and lecture 4 about limit measures. I give 2 references. So for hyperbolic diffeomorphism, a good reference is the short book by Rufus Bowen. And then what I will discuss in the 3 following lectures is more or less contained in a paper with Jérôme Buzy and Omri Sarig, which is available on arXiv. So now let me go back to uniformly hyperbolic system. I don't want to enter into detail. I just want to give a flavor about the properties we have. And it will follow a bit what Stefano said. So first, with the definition, I will say it maybe in a different way, but it's more or less the same. As Stefano said, there are some variations in the definition, but the idea is always the same. So when you study a system, there are 2 kinds of orbits. The orbits that are recurrent, the orbits that are non-recurrent. So the non-recurrent part is the part you're not interested in at first. So you want to put it apart. So I wrote a way to define non-recurrent points that are the points that are trapped by a region, but you may skip the detail. So you have the non-recurrent part. And on the recurrent part, you require the hyperbolicity, which is that you contract on one direction and you expand on the other one. I put it in a way which says that, so it's a pointwise version, but again, you may skip it. So here on this example, you're on the two sphere, and you have two particular fixed points, one repeller. So here, you only have a repelling direction, U, unstable direction, if you want. And you have an attractor, which attracts orbits in the neighborhood, so you only have a stable direction here. But you also have another big set of points that are non-recurrent, which is a contour set, which is what we call the horseshoe. So it's the example by Smale of the horseshoe. So in fact, what you have is somewhere you have a square, which is folded by the dynamics and mapped on, in this way. And if you look to orbits that never escape from in the future or in the past, what you get is a contour set, which satisfies this hyperbolicity condition. And all the other orbits either comes from the source or die on the sink, and so are non-recurrent. Okay. So more generally, when you're hyperbolic, so here the dynamic splits in three parts, so two fixed points and one set here. But more generally, you understand very well how to split it, and that's the content of Smale's spectral decomposition theorem. So it says, okay, you put away the non-recurrent point and you consider the recurrent one. So there are different ways to talk about recurrence. So in the classical way, you talk about the non-wandering set. Anyway, so you have a set of points that are not trapped, and it splits into a finite number of pieces that are invariant compact set, disjoint, and that cannot be split again. So they cannot be written as a union of two invariant disjoint compact sets. They are transitive. So here's a way to write that they are transitive. If you fix two open sets of these pieces, of each of these pieces, you always find a point from the first open set which will enter in the second one after some iteration. In fact, so the sets are called basic sets. So as I said, there are three such sets in the previous example. So you cannot decompose more the sets as invariant subset, but there is a way to decompose a bit more if you consider non-invariant set. So in fact, if you consider iterate of the dynamics, maybe that sets are not anymore transitive. So what you can do is to find always a new decomposition, which is like a cyclic decomposition. So you have an invariant, no, you have a compact subset, A, which is disjoint from some iterates until a time, M, such that Fm of A is mapped into itself. So A is preserved by Fm. So if you look to now to the return map, Fm, from A to itself, now it's not only transitive, but it satisfies a stronger property, which is a topological mixing. So this time, if you fix two open sets and look to the dynamics F to the M, you will have an iterate such that U meets V, but then all the further iterate will still meet V. Okay. So this is a way to decompose, and then you want to understand the dynamics inside each piece. So what you will do is to code. So one way to code is to build Markov partition. I won't define it now, but here I am saying what it means to code. So you have a symbolic space, sigma. So sigma is a space of sequences over a finite alphabet. The map is a shift map, so you shift the sequences. And your symbolic system, sigma, is semi-conjugate to the, so I should have said first, consider any basic set that you will code, and you build a symbolic system which is semi-conjugated to the map F on K. So it means that there is a continuous map from sigma to K, which is surjective and satisfies this relation. Moreover, the system on sigma is not too large compared to what you have on K. So if you pick the preimage of a point, what you find is a finite set. So for instance, if you look to the horseshoe I have shown previously, so you may look to the left part, the right part, and you may code by giving 0 on the left and 1 on the right, and then the orbit receive a coding for the itinerary, so a sequence of 0 and 1, which is in one-to-one correspondence with the set K. So here the alphabet is 0, 1, and the system sigma is a set of sequences of 0 and 1 where you allow all possible transitions. Okay, so this is for the coding. Then you will do ergodic theory. So to understand limit behavior, as Stefano said, you look to invariant probability measures. So capital M is a set of invariant probability measures for your system. Again, you may decompose invariant probability measure sometimes, and so you will call ergodic probability, though, that are not decomposable. So ergodicity means that each time you have an invariant measurable set, its measure is 0 or 1. And in general, you will find plenty of invariant probability and of ergodic probabilities. But some are more natural than others. So Stefano mentioned the physical measures and said that it's a big question to know if they exist. But in the hyperbolic case, uniformly hyperbolic case, it always exists. So you have, as in Pallis conjecture, a finite number of ergodic probabilities such that Lebesgue almost every point in the manifold, when you average its forward orbit, it converges to one of the probabilities. Okay? And yes, okay. But you may discuss other distribution problem, and so, because this measure here only sits on the attractor. So in the previous example, you only had one probability, which is on the sink. But on the horseshoe is not seen by Lebesgue almost every point. On the other hand, you may, for instance, look to another equidistribution problem. With this one, you may be interested by periodic points and wonder what is the set in your space that is the most seen by the periodic points. So you may do it in this way. You consider all periodic points up to some period, put Dirac on these points, and so average. You get a probability measure, and when n goes to infinity, you look where it converges. And so if you do it on each basic set, Bowen has shown that it converges to an invariant probability measure, always, which is also, which represents another behavior. Okay, so then for your system, you may want to study in more detail the invariant measure, but more specifically, there's one. So for this one, we know a lot of properties still in the uniform hyperbolic setting. We know that they may be found as maximal point for some variational problems. So they are called equilibrium states. I will define this more precisely later. If you look, each time you take one of those measures, you may look at the system as a measurable system, so up to measurable equivalence, and try to classify the system. And if you do that, the system you have found in the hyperbolic setting, these measures are well-known systems. They are Bernoulli measures on Markov chains for some good weights. So we understand well these measures up to measure transformations. In particular, they are mixing. So maybe assuming that you consider basic sets that are topologically mixing, or up to consider an iterate, as I said. So this means that each time you take two measurable sets, two regions, when you push one, it enters in the second one in a good way, distributes weights well inside in a good way. You have this property. And then you may address other limit property. So I mentioned two classical ones. So you may want to understand better the mixing. So if you pick any measurable set, you won't have a better property. But if you take sets that are regular enough, you may show that the convergence here is exponential. So one way to do it is that you have exponential decay of correlations. So for your system, if you consider two Hölder maps, and then you push one by the dynamics and you don't touch the other one and you average the product, this converges to the product of the average exponentially fast. And then you have also a central limit theorem which studies the fluctuations. So for typical points for this measure, this sum divided by n converges to the average of phi for the measure. And then you have a central limit theorem which tells you something about the fluctuation when you change the time scale. So the fluctuation converges to a Gaussian law, which says that the system behaves like independent random variable. So you have converges to Brownian motion. Okay, I won't go further. It's just some example of limit theorem you can get. So we were in the good case. So you can see more details in Bowen. So we were in the good case, in the uniformly hyperbolic case. And the goal now is to try to see for a general diffeomorphism what can remain. So maybe not for the whole system, but for parts of the system. So the first step was to decompose the dynamics. So let's try to decompose the dynamics. So I want to define a good candidate to generate the basic set of the hyperbolic diffeomorphism. So I will introduce subsets, invariant subsets that are called homoclinic classes. So homoclinic class is a set which may be large, but which is defined from the periodic points. So if you look to a periodic orbit, you say that it's hyperbolic if when you look to the tangent map at the point and at the period, you find a linear map. This linear map has no eigenvalue on the unit circle. So you have a stable part, the direction corresponding to eigenvalue with modulus less than 1, and the unstable part, so the other eigenvalue with modulus larger than 1. And to such periodic orbit, so let me do a picture here that you already have seen. So you have, let's say, a fixed point, and you have these two spaces, stable and unstable. And then you find, if you look to a point that converges to the periodic orbit by forward iteration, what you find is an immerse submanifold tangent to the stable space. And if you do it in the past, you find what we call the unstable manifold. In general, these manifolds are just immersed, but may be complicated, and they may accumulate on themselves. This is something quite intricate, we will see later. So Newhouse has introduced then the notion of homoclinic class. What we do is to look at the transverse intersection point between the stable and unstable manifold. So you take the point itself. Also, you take all these points together and then take the closure. So by definition, it's an invariant compact set, which is quite rich. So here is a picture, famous picture, already discovered in some sense by Poincaré. He realized that something complicated was here. And it's good because in the uniformly hyperbolic setting, this set, the way you build a set, gives you exactly the basic sets. Each time you have a periodic orbit, this associates the basic set that contains that periodic orbit. How to show that? Well, if you take a point in the homoclinic class, it cannot be it cannot be in the non-recurrent set. It cannot be trapped by an open set because it dies in the future and the past to the same orbit. So it should be contained in the basic set of the periodic point. And conversely, to show that the homoclinic class fills the basic set, we need to know more about hyperbolic dynamics and about shadowing lemma. But I won't detail that. Okay. So the goal is really to talk about non-uniformly hyperbolic system. A good property, a big motivation for studying this set is that they are transitive. So they contain orbits that are dense in the homoclinic class. So how to prove that? So a way to talk about transitivity is to pick two open sets here that meet the homoclinic class and try to find a point in the homoclinic class in the first open set that enter in the second one. So to show that, we use another property for hyperbolic dynamics, which is the inclination lemma. So the inclination lemma tells you if you have a periodic orbit, hyperbolic one, so you have the stable and unstable manifold. If you pick a submanifold, a disk transversal to the stable manifold, here, and you iterate forward, so this point here converges to the fixed point or to the periodic orbit. But if you iterate the disk is stretched in the unstable direction and then accumulate on the unstable direction. So you have C1 convergence of the submanifold. So what to do here? So let's take the first open set, and then, so it contains a transverse intersection because it meets the homoclinic class. So then let's take a disk that is transverse to the stable manifold, like here. And then you iterate forward. So that disk has to come close to the point, stretch in the unstable. And when you iterate again, it will follow a large part of the unstable manifold, as large as you want if you iterate enough, and then since the unstable manifold enters in the second open set, it enters in this open set. Okay? So you got the transitivity. So you have good property because you have found invariant compact sets that are transitive, and you may say, okay, we found a picture which is similar to what we had yes?
So how come we cannot get any tangencies in the closure? I mean, how come the transversality is not, you do not assume the transversality is uniform.
No.
But you get it as a consequence of this.
No, there are points where the
Closure is compact, but it's not, you do not have.
No. You may have
Closure is compact.
you may have an intersection where the angle is as small as you want. You may also have tangency.
Sure.
Yeah. The transverse intersection point in general is a small set inside the. It fills, but it's small set. It's countable set. If you compare to Smale spectral decomposition theorem in the hyperbolic setting, so you have some differences. So first, the homoclinic classes, maybe you may have an infinite set. And second, in general, if you pick two homoclinic classes which are not equal, they may be not disjoint. They may intersect and do not coincide. Okay. Let me give another property which gives another way to define homoclinic classes. So if you so here again, pick a homoclinic class. I denote H of O, the homoclinic class. Then I want.
So you may have two homoclinic classes that neither nested nor disjoint. They just overlap.
Yes. You may even have. Yes, I want detail. It's not immediate to give an example. Here I am compact. The manifold is compact, but what's? Yes, this may occur even in a non-compact, in compact manifold. Yes.
It's a condition that guarantees disjointness.
Okay. I will talk about that tomorrow on surfaces. So still on surfaces, you may have non-disjointness, but the intersections are not too big. I will say that later. But okay, let me give an idea of an example. So you may have a manifold, even in dimension 2. You split it in two parts with a submanifold, and you have a dynamics which preserve that submanifold. And here you have a periodic, a fixed point, hyperbolic 1, whose homoclinic intersection filled all that part. And then you may have the same on the other side. It's possible to build something like that. And so here, the homoclinic classes are the two halves of this manifold, and so they intersect along this manifold. Okay, so here the intersection is not too large. You may have more pathological pictures, but they intersect, they are not disjoint.
You have an SRB measure, then there's a single homoclinic class with positive measure?
In general, it's complicated to answer, but okay, let's see. It's really what I will discuss in this mini course, so maybe we can come back to your question later. Okay, so for today I am more topological and there are no measures. Okay, so let me introduce a new definition. If you consider another hyperbolic periodic point, Q, you say it's homoclinically related to the hyperbolic orbit O if the stable manifold of Q intersects the unstable manifold of O transversally somewhere. There may be also non-transverse intersection, but I want at least one transverse intersection. And conversely, the unstable manifold of Q has a transverse intersection point with a stable manifold of O, like here. And so this is a relation between periodic orbit. And this relation, in fact, turns out that it is an equivalence relation. So you may look to the equivalence classes for that relation among periodic orbit. And then if you take the closure of an equivalence class among periodic orbits, the closures recover the notion of homoclinic class. So if you pick O and look to all the periodic points homoclinically related to O, take the closure, you get again the homoclinic class of O. How to show that? It's again a consequence of the inclination lemma. So for instance, you may try to do it yourself. It's not that complicated. But let me just give one part. So here, those 2 points are homoclinically related. If you apply the inclination lemma, it tells you that the unstable manifold here will accumulate here, whereas the stable manifold here, if you iterate backwards, it will accumulate here, C1. So somewhere here, you find a transverse intersection arbitrarily close to that point. So that point is in the closure of the homoclinic class of that point. Okay. And to show that it's an equivalence relation, it's very similar. Okay? Questions about homoclinic classes, about the definition? Okay, fine. Another property, more subtle, and you may skip in the first step, so is a notion of period of the class. So if you remember, for a basic set, there is a way to split it again to find a better recurrence, to find a topological mixing. So here, the homoclinic classes are transitive, in general, not topologically mixing. Because if you take an iterate, again, they may split. The homoclinic classes of an iterate may not be the homoclinic class of the initial map, but refines it. So here's what it says. If you take a homoclinic class, it splits into homoclinic classes of an iterate. So there is always a decomposition. You have a compact subset, HP. So P is take any point in O. So you have a compact subset which contains P, which is eventually periodic under an iterate of F, it is mapped onto itself. I'm not saying that HP is disjoint from its iterate before time K. That's not true in general. But when you return, you get a better property. So for Fk on HP, you get the topological mixing. And this K is called the period of the homoclinic class. There is a way, combinatorial way to define the period. So you look to all the periodic orbits homoclinically related to O. You look to all these periods. You find a set of numbers, and you take the greatest common divisor. This is a period. So if you have the homoclinic class associated to a fixed point, it is topologically mixing. The period is 1. Again, the inclination lemma is behind that property. Okay. So let me continue. So I said no measure. It's not exactly true. So up to now, I've spoken about periodic orbit. You may want to generalize. So periodic orbit, when you distribute over the periodic orbit, you find a special case of an invariant measure. But in general, you're interested by a more complicated measure. So if you look to an ergodic measure, you can define, again, a notion to be ergodic, which generalizes the case of the periodic orbit. So let me say that quickly, because maybe most of you know that. Otherwise, tell me. So the tangent map on a full measure set for your measure has a splitting, which is similar to the splitting into eigenspace for a periodic orbit. So you have a measurable decomposition of the tangent space over a full measure set into linear subbundle. And for each of the subbundle, you have a number which is associated, which is called the Lyapunov exponent, with the following property. So if you pick any non-zero vector in your space, EI, and if you iterate forward or backward, you get an expansion or a contraction, asymptotic, with an exponential rate, which corresponds to the number lambda. This can be written in that way. Well, the expansion or contraction is not assumed to be uniform, it's only asymptotic. Okay, so now you look to this number lambda. If you really want an expansion, you consider lambda that are positive. If you want a contraction, you look to the number lambda that are negative. And you may have a special case where lambda is 0. So you say that mu is hyperbolic if 0 does not appear. This way you put together all the space with negative exponents, so space with positive exponent, and you get a new invariant splitting into a stable and unstable space, non-uniformly stable, non-uniformly unstable. So this splitting is invariant. And you say in this case that the measure is hyperbolic. Because in this case, it has many good properties. So for instance, in the uniformly hyperbolic setting, so for hyperbolic periodic orbit, you have stable and unstable manifold. In fact, in the uniformly hyperbolic setting, any point has also stable and unstable manifold with which are large, which have a uniform size, uniform geometry. For hyperbolic measure, it's not necessarily true, but at almost every point, you have stable and unstable set whose size, which vary measurably. So the size is not uniform, but if you pick a large measure set, you may find some manifold with uniform size. In this case, you find a picture like that. Here, it's just some part of the measure. If you go elsewhere, maybe the stable and unstable manifold are much smaller. Okay. So this is very general, it's okay? And then you mimic the definition of homoclinic relation for periodic orbits. You said that a measure, so still ergodic hyperbolic, is homoclinically related to hyperbolic periodic orbit O if for almost every point of the measure, the stable manifold of the point is intersect transversally the unstable manifold of O, and conversely, the unstable manifold of X intersect transversally the stable manifold of O, meaning that you have at least one transverse intersection. Maybe you also have non-transverse intersection. And so we have this notation. Okay. And then here is a useful theorem. So Katok has proved, has a result, a famous result, which says each time you have a hyperbolic measure, ergodic hyperbolic measure, mu, this gives you a lot of periodic orbits in a neighborhood. In fact, it gives you also hyperbolic set, larger hyperbolic set in a neighborhood. If you revisit his theorem in our spirit, here is what you get. Each time you take a hyperbolic measure mu, then not only you find a hyperbolic periodic orbit in a neighborhood, but in fact, this periodic orbit has to be homoclinically related to the measure. And then the measure is supported on the homoclinic class of O. I didn't say that. So for that, you use a lot of, I didn't say so the existence of stable and unstable manifold are what we call Pearson theory. It's very useful and important tool in dynamics. And if you go in the detail of the theory, you can get this result. So behind that, you have a shadowing lemma adapted to this non-uniform hyperbolicity. What's the idea? The idea is that for the measure, you have recurrence. So here you have the measure. So take part of the measure where the stable and unstable manifold are uniform. And the point is, you have points that are recurrent, so you may find point that returns in the part where you have a good stable and unstable manifold. And so if you pick a rectangle along the stable direction, when you iterate, it returns and it stretches along the unstable. And in intersection here, you will find your periodic point with huge stable and unstable manifold that intersect those of the measure. Okay, this was a discussion for general diffeomorphism. And I'd like to give a specific statement on surfaces that I will prove tomorrow. So what about the case of surface? So on surface, you have better information related to homoclinic classes, because you may look to a notion of, so you may look to a notion of being large and small for the dynamics. So I introduced a notion which is called the topological entropy. Topological entropy measures the complexity of your system or of an invariant set. So if you look to your system, you may try to count the number of orbits. So for that, you fix a scale, epsilon, and you iterate until some time n, and you look how many orbits you may distinguish in time n at that scale epsilon. You have only a finite number of them. So you find a number, and you look how this number grows with n. You take the exponential rate, and this is what you call the topological entropy for the scale epsilon. When you reduce epsilon, you have new dynamics that may appear at small scale, so this number increases. And when epsilon goes to 0, you find a limit, which is a topological entropy, which is finite for diffeomorphism. If you look to an invariant subset, you may also consider the topological entropy, and so a set is small if the entropy is 0, because then you don't have rich dynamics in some sense. Otherwise, it has positive entropy. And you find a very different behavior on surface depending if the dynamics has 0 or positive entropy. So when you have 0 entropy, here are some examples. You have translations on the two torus. You have time one map of Hamiltonian system for the pendulum. So here the orbit sits inside invariant lines. So there are systems that you really understand well. You also have examples that do not preserve the volume. So for instance, this one, which is represent the Morse-Mel system. So here you have finite number of fixed points, or more generally of periodic points. So some attractors, some repellers, some saddle one, and any other orbit die on this point in the future or in the past. So again, the system here is very simple. So in some sense, dynamics with 0 entropy are really simple system. We don't understand completely all of them, but we have we have partial classification results that describe them quite precisely. And so the topic of tomorrow is to describe surface dynamics with positive entropy. And I just give the statement, and then I'll stop here. And this is something we proved with Jérôme Buzy and Omri Sarig, and what is proved in the paper mentioned there. So pick a diffeomorphism of surface, which is C-infinity. It's important to assume here that it's C-infinity. And then you look at its homoclinic class, and then you have a picture which is really close to Smale spectral decomposition theorem.
I mean, you look at some arbitrary homoclinic class.
No, you look at all the homoclinic
Look at
classes.
all the homoclinic classes.
So first, the homoclinic classes cover the dynamics. In which sense? In the sense that they contain, they cover the dynamics up to the set of zero entropy. There is a better way to say that, but if you take a set, an invariant compact set with some entropy, then it meets the union of the homoclinic class. The intersections are the same entropy as the set itself. You don't lose dynamics considering the entropy. Then the homoclinic class, you were asking if they are disjoint. They are disjoint in some sense. So if you look to the intersection always has zero entropy, so it's a small set.
So if O and O prime are related, then they coincide with the homoclinic classes?
Sorry?
If O is related to O prime.
Yes. Maybe it was implicit in what I said. When O is related to O prime, the homoclinic classes are the same.
They coincide.
Yes, they coincide. So my definition of entropy is valid for any invariant set. So the entropy of a set is the entropy of the restriction of the map to this set. So you only compute orbits inside the set. Yes. Then, if the map is transitive, you have at most one homoclinic class. Well, maybe not exactly. You may have periodic orbits that are not related to any other ones, so whose homoclinic class is just reduced to that periodic orbit. If you don't consider this trivial homoclinic class, you only have one non-trivial homoclinic class at most. And then you have kind of finiteness. In general, you don't have finiteness, but if you look to the homoclinic class whose entropy is not too close to zero, so you fix a bound, an arbitrary bound, then the classes with entropy larger is a finite set. So this is what I want to discuss tomorrow. And the last thing is just to mention what I will do in the last lectures, is then to describe the dynamics inside the homoclinic classes, which is valid also in any dimension. Okay? So I will stop now. Thank you.